Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. With me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, I'm going to just call it an ordinary Oregon. Ordinary Oregon, they kind of go together. And right now it's, we had this beautiful, unimaginably warm day. Hottest day of the year so far. It got up to close to 80 degrees. It might have been even 80 in recorded places this last week. And now we are stuck back in this rain pattern for the whole week ahead. So it's very ordinary springtime. Even though we had that amazing day, we're right back to the rain. That's okay. It's almost April. This episode's dropping on March 31st, and tomorrow marks the beginning of Alcohol Awareness Month. Did you know that April is Alcohol Awareness Month? And whether this is the first time that you're reflecting on your drinking or you've been doing this work for a while, it's the perfect time to reconnect to why awareness matters so much. It's not about labeling yourself. It's not about shame or extremes, black and white thinking, absolutes. Here at Alcohol Minimalist, of course, it's about informed, compassionate, science-based change. And really, we're talking about doing that on your own schedule, meeting yourself where you're at, taking small steps. And that starts with cleaning up some big misunderstandings. And that's why in today's episode, we are digging into 5 facts, and I'm saying that I'm not on camera, but I've got my little, my fingers up doing the quotes, facts about alcohol that most people get wrong. These aren't opinions or hot takes. These are actually data-backed truths that shaped my own journey and have helped hundreds of people find freedom from and peace in their relationship with alcohol. So let's dive in. Number 1, I don't want to call it a fact, right? Because like I said, you can't see me doing the quotes. Fact, quote. It's not really a fact. Number 1, moderate drinking is good for your health. Now, how many of you believe that to be true? Let's start with the classic red wine myth. You've heard it. I've heard it. Red wine is good for your heart. It's still on TV. It's still in magazines. It feels true. But the latest research says otherwise. While early observational studies suggested a cardiovascular benefit, more recent and rigorous studies, like a 2018 Lancet review involving over 190 countries, concluded this: the safest amount of alcohol to consume is none. And the truth is, any perceived health benefits are far outweighed by the risks. And alcohol, it is a known carcinogen. It contributes to high blood pressure, liver disease, and more. And it's simply not a proactive, healthy thing that you should add to your diet. I talked about this in my ebook, Alcohol Truths, How Much is Safe. And I talk about the fact that if you're not already including alcohol in your life, you should not start drinking for any health benefit reason. It's simply not true. And we hear all the time about things like the blue zones and wine at 5, that's like a healthy lifestyle thing, right?
The fact of the matter is that all science related, and if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know I say it all the time. The science that we have around alcohol is not, it's associative. All right. There is very little causal, especially in humans, because everything that we talk about in terms of studies around alcohol, we can't isolate alcohol, not for any long period of time in humans, because humans can't survive on alcohol alone. Most of the study information that we have comes from rats, and that's causal. All right, that actually shows a causal, and that would be with regards to cancer specifically. But the other data that we use is observational. We look backwards and people tell us their usage, and then we can extrapolate things and we can make determinations. We can see in acute settings that when people drink, their blood pressure goes up. We can see things like that. But over time, our data is observational. And the thing that we know is that the data is very clear on is the more alcohol you drink, the worse your outcomes become. It's down here in the quote unquote moderate levels that there isn't a ton of science on. And in terms of really being able to extrapolate, I've talked about numerous different meta studies and meta analyses and on the podcast in different episodes. I'll link all of those kind of data sciencey specific episodes in the show notes this week. But the bottom line is any health benefits are far outweighed by risks. And that doesn't mean that you're doomed if you've had a glass of wine. It just means that we have to stop pretending that alcohol is a health food. It's not. And no one should start to drink because they think it will help their heart. All right. So on to fact number 2. Fact number 2, this is something that is actually true, but I want to add some context to it. The fact is there is no universally safe, quote unquote, level of alcohol consumption. That's tricky because a lot of people want a clean number. They want me to just tell me how many drinks are okay. The problem is that the real answer is that it depends. It depends on your weight, your age, your genetics, your medications, your stress levels, even what you've eaten during the day, how hot it is outside, how much sleep you've had. All of it impacts how alcohol affects your body. So while guidelines like 1 drink per day for women and 2 for men can be helpful reference points, and I use them, right? I talk about low risk levels. Those are low risk levels. But what I've said multiple times, and I'll reiterate it again, low risk levels are associated with developing alcohol use disorder. They are not about your relative risk or your risk for disease, okay, or for getting a DUI or for tripping and hurting yourself. These are things that, if you're talking about safety, there is no specific number that says that this number is how much will equate to low risk for you, because it is a personal risk tolerance, and making decisions around how much you're drinking is a conscious choice. And that's what really needs to be the takeaway. You got to stay conscious, not have an unconscious habit. The bottom line is you want to know what's a universally safe level of alcohol. The most safe level, as we just discussed in number 1, is 0, right? But if you're going to include alcohol in your life, you want to do it in a minimal way. I personally stick to low risk limits, which are always in the show notes, by the way. All right, fact number 3. 9 out of 10 people who drink excessively are not alcohol dependent. All right, so that's actually a truth, but what people believe is the opposite. They believe that people that drink excessively are alcohol dependent, and the truth is they are actually not. And this was a big aha for me personally. And for a long time, I told myself, I'm not an alcoholic like my mom was, so I guess I'm okay. But I still drank daily. I still felt anxious about it. And I couldn't figure out why it felt so hard to cut back. And then I read this study about the CDC, and it says that, 90% of excessive drinkers are not physically dependent on alcohol. They don't have withdrawal. They don't need rehab, but they do have a deeply ingrained habit loop and often a psychological dependence, just like I did. That's why so many people, maybe you, feel stuck. Not because you're broken or powerless, not because you're physically dependent, but because your brain has learned to expect alcohol in certain routines and certain times, and you continue to feed that with your own thoughts. Breaking the habit is absolutely possible, and it starts with awareness. It starts with challenging the belief that you are physically dependent and building through mindset tools and changing your thoughts around your core beliefs around alcohol so that you feel differently and so that you take better actions and get different results. That's how we change our habit around alcohol.
Just a quick break to talk with you more about Sunnyside. Did you know that Sunnyside uses science to help you reach your goals by focusing on 3 scientifically proven superpowers that you have? Number 1, the power of pre-commitment. Each week, you set an intention for the week ahead that includes a tracking goal, a drink goal, and possibly a dry day goal. Number 2, the power of conscious interference. You'll learn the habit of tracking each day as soon as you finish it, which creates a mindful pause before you start the next day. And number 3, positivity. We know that this is a big step that can be tough at times, right? And that's why Sunnyside offers coaching through SMS and email to give you support, advice, and motivation. You can check out a free 15-day trial at www.sunnyside.co/Molly. That's www.sunnyside.co/Molly.
Number 4, quote unquote, fact. Most people underestimate what counts as a standard drink. Now, this is a fact, right? I guess the thing that people get wrong is what is a standard drink? Let's talk numbers. According to the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism, the NIAAA, one standard drink, this is U.S. standards, folks. It is different in the U.K. It is different in Australia. If you are listening there, you should check your own country's standard drinks. In the United States, 5 ounces of wine, 12 ounces of beer at 5% alcohol by volume, and 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits. So why am I talking about alcohol by volume and standard drink? Because if you're drinking an IPA that's 7% or even higher, do you know I have actually seen IPAs going up now to like 9.5% and 10%. That's getting dangerously close to wine, friends. So that's going to be, you're going to need to drink either a lot less of it or find an IPA that's back down in the, you can get some, I'm just telling you, you can get some great IPAs that are actually alcohol by volume. They are closer to, they can even be 4.5%, 5%. But if you're drinking a 7% ABV alcohol by volume IPA, I got all these little three-letter abbreviations, a 12-ounce can of a 7% alcohol by volume IPA equals 1.4 drinks, not one. And if you are drinking a 7-8-ounce glass of wine, that's easily, 1.5 drinks, not one. And I used to think that I drank 3 beers at night. And in reality, I was drinking 4 to 5 standard drinks every night. And it matters, not because you need to count obsessively, but because your body metabolizes alcohol based on its ethanol content, not on how many glasses you pour. And or how many bottles you drink if you're, if you are drinking a higher alcohol by volume beer. And this misunderstanding leads many people to think that they're drinking moderately when they are actually binging by the NIAAA standards. And again, not important in terms of getting obsessive about counting. However, we do want to start paying attention because you've heard me say it many, many times on the podcast. We cannot change what we cannot see. If we are not willing to look at it specifically, we can't change it. All right. Fact. I'm doing that fact with my fingers again. Only people who hit rock bottom need to change their drinking. Well, I think you know that this is not true, but I hear people tell me, I'm not that bad. I know that and I watch people struggle with, especially people who are high functioning like I was. They're so accomplished in other areas of their life. They get this thought process going and this story in their heads like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm an alcoholic or I don't black out. The thing is that rock bottom is a myth. You don't have to wait until things get worse to want something better for yourself. You are allowed to want less worry. You are allowed to want better sleep. You are allowed to want peace, even if no one else sees your drinking as a problem. In fact, the best time to change is before you hit any type of rock bottom. When you are absolutely still in control, when you can make decisions from a place of clarity, not crisis. So here's your Alcohol Awareness Month kickoff. I want you to remember that knowledge is your superpower. Change is totally within your reach, and you don't have to be broken to want something better for your life. Let's recap the 5 things that most people, 5 quote unquote facts, things, myths, beliefs, whatever you want to call them, that most people get wrong. Number 1, moderate drinking is good for your health. Nope, science doesn't support that. Clearly, that is not something that we want to keep believing. Number 2, there's no universally safe level. It's personal. Context matters when you drink. Number 3, most excessive drinkers aren't addicted, physically dependent. You can be stuck in your habit without being physically dependent on alcohol. I want you to hear me on that. You can be stuck without being physically dependent. Me, myself, many people, the people that I work with, they develop a psychological dependence on alcohol. That's what we have to work on. Number 4, we misjudge standard drinks all the time. And when we misjudge standard drinks, when we drink more than we really believe that we're drinking, it affects everything. So we got to get clear with ourselves and we got to start taking action to support drinking less by figuring out how much we're actually drinking. And the last one, number 5, rock bottom is not a requirement to change your drinking. You can choose change now. And I got to tell you, it's worth it. If this episode made you think a little differently, share it with someone you care about, leave a review. Better yet, come join us inside Making Peace with Alcohol. This month, April, is a perfect time to start. And remember, this isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. One thought at a time, one choice at a time. You absolutely can drink less and worry less. So let's do it together. Until next time, keep challenging your stories around alcohol. Make sure you're not holding on to a false truth. And as always, choose peace, my friends. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.